Um, 3, 2, 1. Hello, all. Welcome to the Michael and Harrison show. Back again for another episode of the podcast. We are deeply sorry about many of the delays that have been happening over the past few weeks, but it's just been a result of our own personal circumstances, and there was nothing that we could really have done about it. Anyways, getting started with this, I think one of the big things that we should talk about is Brexit. Since Brexit is coming up on March the 29th, coincidentally my birthday. Anyways, um, let's see, Michael, what do you think about the current deal that Theresa May has proposed to the MPs that's going to be scheduled for the vote on the 12th?
I mean, it's the same one she gave them in January, and it's the same one where she lost by historic margins. So nothing's really changed.
I don't think the vote's going to change. I still think they're going to reject it, don't you think?
Yeah, I think they will.
And then, and then we'll have a no-deal Brexit, which would be very, very bad.
Well, it depends. The Parliament might vote to revoke Article 50. Yeah, that's not very likely either. They might try to get an extension though.
I feel like they won't get an extension, though.
No, the EU is open to extension, but they've said that they'll only give one if she can show that she can get people to vote for a deal.
I mean, like, the weird thing about Brexit is that it's in that medium where they want to exit, but they want to exit with a deal, which is like basically impossible because of the Irish border stop thing, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue there right now.
And since no one can agree on that, nothing is ever going to get done. Um,
More or less.
for those who are not informed, let's see, the Irish border stop is basically where Northern Ireland meets the rest of Ireland, right? And and if they want to like leave the EU, they have to prevent the movement of people and goods between the two islands, which is a big contentious issue between the two countries, right?
Yeah. The issue is basically Northern Ireland is like split more or less 50-50. No, Unionists have a slight majority actually, but there's I think 40% of the population wants to join up with Ireland. So you had terrorism in the 1900s, which is why free movement of people is a big deal in Ireland.
Mm. There's also a bunch of other questions too, like Gibraltar status or stuff like that too, as well.
Yeah.
Mm. But yeah, I think that's one thing that we're gonna have to continue covering as we approach March 29th. Um, let's see. Another big thing that has happened so far would be that there was a airplane crash, a very sad airplane crash over in, I believe, Ethiopia. The new 737 MAX 8, only a few months old, has crashed into the countryside out there, killing all 157 people on board. Um, Michael, what do you think about this crash, for one thing?
Well, I believe they're currently thinking it was a mechanical failure, right?
We have no clue. It is too early to tell.
Yeah.
Though currently they're drawing connections of a previous air crash, a Lion Air crash back last year, on the same model of aircraft that crashes the ocean, which is believed to happen from an automated system um, that pushed the plane's nose down. Well, no concrete, um, ev- no no official report has been given out because it is too early to give out one of those reports.
Well, if it's anything like that, I would say that this is probably Boeing's failure for building their plane, a way to manage to pull that off.
Hmm. Many currently have speculated that it's sorry, may currently speculate that it's mainly due to some programming error within the software of the plane, in which they tried to automate it so that the plane wouldn't stall, but something with the sensor or something like that, let's see, give a wrong reading of the pitch of the aircraft, and so it just forces the plane's nose down into the ground.
Yeah, that looks like grounds to sue Boeing.
very bad look for
Yeah.
always for Boeing in general. Um, do you think that like people are gonna stop flying the 737 because of these air crashes?
I don't think like they're gonna. Okay, they might ground the fleet for like a couple of bit to like investigate if like there's a systematic issue. And like if there is a systematic issue, obviously they're gonna probably gonna get grounded until the issue is fixed. But otherwise, they're probably not gonna like immediately just scrap them all.
Mm, true, true. Um, hmm. Anyways, yeah, that is like the big thing. One of the more interesting things about this crash was that there was a bunch of UN people on there as well who have unfortunately died in the crash. Um, Michael, what do you think about the death of all these people though?
I mean, it's really tragic. I don't really think there's anything else you could say about it.
Hmm. Um, all right. So, um, one of the big things that's also happened in during the week would be Elizabeth Warren saying that she'd break up the tech giants for some reason. Specifically, she has said that um, she wants to reverse some of the mergers that have happened with the companies. So stuff like Amazon and Whole Foods, WhatsApp, Instagram and Facebook, and Google with Waze. Do you think that, like, if like, say Elizabeth Warren were to be elected president for some reason, do you believe that she'd be able to fulfill this promise?
Breaking it up, not very likely. If she actually tried to pull it off, I think it would be more like what happened to Microsoft in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where like they get a bunch of restrictions slapped on them and like a big fine. Because I think breaking up these companies is way too hard right now because of the integration.
Because like it could be like breaking Google, right?
Yeah.
Itself, which would not be a good thing because the internet,
Well, it
like,
doesn't really work in the first place.
yeah.
I think it's the issue with technology companies in general where like consolidation is better because then you have more data to use.
hmm Mm. But do you think like it would be possible for say, Instagram and WhatsApp to be split off from Facebook? Because they're
I
entirely
mean,
separate applications.
yeah, those could work because like Facebook bought those in the first place.
Mm.
But like something like Google doesn't really work because like search engines, that's not really how it works.
I feel like it would be possible for some section of Google, like the Google X development stuff, right?
Yeah, you could probably like split off some. Like you probably like take like Google's parent company and break it up into pieces, but you can't break like Google itself, the search engine, into pieces.
Yeah, that'd be very, very hard to do.
Yeah.
Mm. Um, Michael, is there anything you'd like to bring up right now?
Um, let's see. From this week, I would say the flare up in India and Pakistan.
Yes, yes. So, Michael, how about you tell the viewers about that?
Well, let's see. So basically, what happened is that there's this geographical region called Kashmir that both Pakistan and India have claims over. So they both control part of it. And in the Indian side, there was a suicide attack on the Indian paramilitary forces, I think on a bus, and it killed, I think, 40 of them if you include the bomber himself.
Mm,
And that was claimed by a terrorist group called JEM that is based in Pakistan. And because of this, India launched planes to do a precision strike in Pakistan, targeting what they claim was a JEM like big like leadership center, and they killed like 300 people. That's very much not verified. And in response, Pakistan launched retaliatory airstrikes and planes have been shot down. The only one confirmed was a MiG-21 from India, and that pilot was captured in Pakistan and recently released as a goodwill gesture.
MiG-21 though, that's a very old plane.
Yeah.
That is from what, the 1960s, I believe. It's
No,
very, very old.
1950s, I think, is when it first entered service.
MiG-21's a supersonic interceptor. I remember that.
Yeah.
1959. So,
Yep.
yep, around there. They still produce these, I think.
They produce it? No, the current produced one is a upgraded version, the MiG-21 BIS.
Oh, I thought it might be the Chinese one, the Chengdu.
No, the Chinese one's used by Pakistan, JF-17,
It's
I
the
think.
J7. Oh, see, they produced these until 2013.
Yeah,
That's an old aircraft. But that just goes to tell you how rugged these aircraft are. Um,
yeah.
anyways, back to the big political thing. Um, I would say that like this flare-up in tensions has been a very bad thing for the world, considering that those two are nuclear powers, right?
Yes, it has.
Hmm. Do you and like I'm not actually sure like though if they went to war like who would win, considering that well Pakistan actually has a better army and military overall compared to India.
No, no, India has a better conventional military.
I mean like but they don't even have ammunition for a week's worth of
Well,
like
yes,
fighting.
but like the conventional forces are much bigger and they're more modernized than Pakistan's.
Pakistan still has a lot of. I think Pakistan still has more nukes than them though. In that case.
Barely. They're almost the same. The issue is that conventional war, so to speak, if they both really went full out, the nukes are gonna start flying.
That would not be a good thing. You'd probably see China be like, "Yo, stop this! I don't want any nuclear radiation in the Himalayas."
China is not likely to care too much about nuclear radiation in the Himalayas.
Okay, maybe Nepal or something then.
They'll care more that they'll lose access to Pakistan's ports.
Mm. Um, Overall though, let's see, do you think that the move by Pakistan to send back the Indian pilot was a good idea?
Well, I mean, from PR's perspective, it definitely helped Pakistan. Although Indian media is talking about how Pakistan caved to Indian pressure, which is dubious.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that it was more like, they maybe were a little bit more afraid of nuclear war breaking out, right?
Yeah.
I
I
feel,
don't think either side's interested in a war. Like Pakistan kind of just wants to like get the pressure off of it, while India is motivated by there's an election coming up, so God looks strong.
yeah, they just gotta, um, anyways, I know there's like some other topic as well that you wanted to talk about, right?
Oh yes, last week we did not cover this, but with the Michael Cohen hearing.
Mm, yes. Now, overall, I thought that I haven't listened to the hearing itself, but I heard that like what basically happened was Michael Cohen basically roasted Trump on a bunch of things and and like told him that he basically committed against crimes against the state in during his presidential term, right?
No, he could not confirm, but he believes that at the very least, Donald Trump knew about the Trump Tower meeting in 2016 that he said he did not know about.
And then there was stuff about like him knowing about some other crimes and stuff, I believe.
Yes, but I think the actual like biggest crime that he like definitively said he thinks that like Trump did is basically insurance fraud. I think is
Mm,
what you call it, because he was like inflating the value of his properties to get him on the up on the Forbes 500 list, and deflating the value in order to pay less taxes.
ooh. Hmm. Now that's pretty dubious. So, do you like? I think the main thing that's coming out of these talks, though, is that like the Democrats obviously want to try to get Trump out of office, right? You think this would provide grounds for them to try to start an impeachment movement in the House?
Um, I mean, this obviously provided a start for like looking for other people to like bring in to see like what happened, right?
Hmm.
But I don't think like what he said like itself is like enough for impeachment.
I mean, like from what I've heard, I don't think that the crimes are bad enough to warrant an impeachment.
It depends how you went. If like he actually knew about the Trump Tower thing, I think that's grounds for impeachment because that's conspiring with a foreign actor to sway an election, more or less.
Yeah, but you have to definitively prove that first.
Yeah, which is why they're trying to get more people to testify right now, I believe.
Hmm. They should probably. Do they have an investigation going in onto that right now?
The investigation, yeah, they're calling in people that Cohen named that's probably being aware of stuff that's happening.
Hmm.
Although he also said that SDNY is also investigating some stuff, so he can't talk about it.
Hmm. Do you believe that any of this like ties in with like possibly what the Mueller report will say?
The Mueller's report,
Yeah.
it possibly could, I believe, given that, but well, the insurance stuff less likely. The Trump Tower meeting more likely to be in there.
Hmm. That'll be interesting to see. Um, and again about like Robert Miller, like when do you think he's gonna release his report?
When? I mean, when he's ready. I mean, everyone keeps saying it's gonna be released soon, but like it's never like actually happened. So
Mm,
I'm not gonna make a prediction on that one.
all right, all right. Um, is there anything else you'd like to talk about right now?
Not really. How about you? Got anything?
Um, I think one of the biggest things that's happened so far is that Chinese exports slumped 21% in February, which is a big issue if you think about it. Um, because you're just seeing that China's slowing down in terms of its exports, becoming more of a, I would say, more like it's like in between a second and first world country, right? In that sense. So it's like,
Second world countries don't exist anymore.
okay. Well, it's like it's becoming towards that point where it's like becoming post like manufacturing economy, right?
China is trying to move towards there, but there's no way it's like anywhere close to that.
Yeah, but like that export slump in itself is sort of like either signaling that or that the world economy is slowing down, right?
It's probably the world economy slowing down. I mean, like the recent U.S. jobs report was a lot worse than expected.
Yeah, I believe that they said they were gonna make like 80,000 jobs and it was like less than a quarter of that,
Yeah,
right?
it was less than a quarter of that. It's like less than 20,000.
Yeah. Um,
Yes, I think it's just the world economy as a whole is slowing down. It could also be because of the whole tariff stuff.
I feel
Although
like
supposedly there's going to be a trade deal soon.
it also is there's also some issue with Brexit as well, given that a lot of people are uncertain about that, so the EU
Yeah,
probably is like importing less and like trying to like, be more conservative with their with buying habits, I feel like, as
yeah,
well. Just with like the political instability currently. And I mean like let's see, I believe that like that 21% slump though is no laughing matter. That's not a good
yeah.
thing at all.
That's a big slump.
Yeah. Um and yeah, do you really think that like the Chinese economy will pick back up from that?
Will it? That is questionable. The government is likely to try to do everything it can to keep it from like entering a recession, but I have no clue if it's actually going to work.
Mm, all right. Um we have about 10 minutes left in the podcast. So, during that time, though, I think one of the more interesting things that we should talk about is this, let's see, SpaceX with their capsule launch to space, which is the first time that we've had an American space capsule dock with the ISS in like, how long has it been? 5 years?
Oh, ever since the last space shuttle was taken out of there.
Yeah. And this marks a remarkable change from, from how it's been previously, where a lot of these space flights have been let's see, publicly owned with NASA, right? But it's starting to switch over
Yeah,
to privatization, even for the flights that are going to be manned by people. And it's expected that, like, I believe the Dragon capsule will be available for use by the end of this year. to go up to the ISS, right?
Oh, well,
So,
that's pretty interesting.
yeah. And overall, like, do you think that this is a good step in the full forward for space flight in general to privatize it more, or do you think that we should keep it remained as like a public-owned entity, like at NASA?
Well, I think it's like having privately owned companies is fine, but I don't think like we should turn everything over to them because that essentially leaves space to the whim of private companies like completely.
Mm. Although, like, there is a treaty that states that like space is for all of humanity, right? So a private company can't own space, but I'm assuming that they could probably buy an asteroid or something out there, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, buying an asteroid isn't really a big deal because like everyone's talked about how space mining is probably gonna be a thing in the future.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
Although I feel like space mining will probably crash the economy of Earth if that was the thing, because of the amount of precious metal you could get.
Yeah, more or less. But I mean, that's a future thing. That technology's not mature yet.
Yeah. Um, but do you think that like overall, right now with like Elon Musk and stuff, do you think that like spaceflight will be cheaper for people to launch satellites up into space to get to space in general? Do you think it will be like a good advancement for humanity as a whole to try to get to space as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think it's always a good idea for humanity to like get into space because there's a lot you can like do in there, right?
Hmm.
And of course, in the future, far future, maybe colonization.
Yeah. I think that'll be good to see. Although I feel like there'd be a lot of like ethics issues with like um what's it called with like maybe the colonization part because you know.
I think the biggest issue is like if like you actually start colonizing and then it's like a private company doing it, like what laws apply there?
Mhm. That is also true, yes. But
Yeah.
then how would you govern it for like if a country colonized it as well? Oh, I mean like you'd be the country's laws technically, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, if like a country's colonizing it, it has to follow the country's laws.
It'd probably be something similar to like how the colonizers did it in the old colonized the New World. You know, they had like private companies who did that, and they probably would just follow British law in that case for like those particular
It's
countries.
not exactly the best example given what happened when colonized places.
Yeah, but like that would probably what would happen.
Yeah. Although I'd rather like they come up with something better than that.
Yeah. Um. uh, What's it called? Um. Uh. Is there anything else that you want to talk about right now?
Um,
Anything that like you could find that be um.
well, I mean, the upcoming early elections in April are going to be interesting, given that the Attorney General says he's going to indict Netanyahu for corruption and bribery.
Oh, interesting, interesting. That'll be interesting to see and hear about. Um.
Yeah, it's like like he actually has a chance of losing this time, unlike all the other times.
Hmm.
And then there's also like how he like made a merger between two far right parties, including an explicitly racist one that's banned in the U.S. as a terrorist organization.
Oh God.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, well, I found something. So, President Nicolas Maduro blaming
Uh,
the imperialist US for causing blackouts and cyber attacks and apparently defeating a coup on him. And so I think one of the things that have been happening recently is the Venezuelan crisis, right? And it's been a lot of like aid convoys and stuff trying to be led by that Juan Guaido, where they've been burned down, and Maduro's essentially been trying to block um, convoys from coming in, right?
yes. Although Guaido's back in the country right now and nothing's happened.
Hmm. Do you think that they're gonna overthrow Mr. Maduro?
Given the current situation, I don't think so. Like I mean, like there's been like blackouts everywhere, but people aren't like really taking to the streets to so to speak.
Oh, no, they have. They have
Yeah, but
in
it's just
both
like
parties.
demonstrations
Yeah,
and
they haven't.
stuff.
It's just not like actual like trying to kill the president himself,
Well,
right?
yeah, there's no trying to like depose the
Oh,
president.
Jesus. Excuse me on that. Yeah, it's although there have been scuffles and arsonist attacks as well.
Yeah. Currently, I don't think any country is really interested in like intervening in Venezuela. I mean, the U.S. has made some veiled remarks about it, but like not really at the same time. So it's basically up to Venezuela itself. And from what I can see right now, the attitude is not at the get rid of them.
I mean, I feel like there'd be some countries that would might want to intervene. Maybe Colombia to an extent, just because they don't like all those migrants crossing the border, right?
Yeah, Colombia.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
Colombia
think,
is, looks like the most likely one,
yeah,
but I think there's gonna need to be something more before they try anything.
it probably has to be some major event or something that would
Yeah, there has to
happen.
be something major. Like just what's going on right now isn't gonna be enough.
Yeah, because Colombia would look horrible, like very, very bad if if they invaded Venezuela right now.
Not necessarily. I mean, most of the West, like basically all of Latin America, Europe, and well, North America too, basically supports the Guaido.
I feel like it's every
So
country but like Bolivia and Nicaragua, I think it was, right? In the
yeah,
Western Hemisphere.
Mexico is a bit iffy, I think, but
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be like international condemnation about it. It's just sets. I mean, it's a bit worrying. It's like so what? Like it just raises the question: what sets the bar for intervening in another country?
Yep. But I do think we'll have to look at that a little bit more. Um, Another thing that I think that's good big thing that's happened over this what's it called over the week has been the IS Bride as well. From Britain, where
Oh yes, that. Well, first of all, I have to say that it's kind of interesting that she decided to leave Britain of all her on her own will, and now wants to come back when ISIS is dead.
yeah. Do you think that she deserves to come back to the UK?
Does she deserve? Well, that's a harder question. I mean, okay, so personally, I think the part where they revoked her British citizenship was kind of dumb because they basically violated international law there and left her like without a country,
Oh yeah.
stateless.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do
Yeah.
that.
I mean, and if she does have a passport, well, she is like she has the right to go back because she's still a UK citizen. Whether they let her live freely though is another question.
Hmm. So where do you think she'll go though?
Right now, it's quite the limbo. I don't really see any place that was willingly gonna be interested in taking her in
Hmm. Yes.
because then all you get is news about oh, your government just took in someone who was like with ISIS, which does not play very well politically.
Did you think, but what about the son who died? Do you think that he should have been allowed into the UK?
Well, I mean, UK has birthright, right? I think
Yeah,
UK is
so
birthright.
he was a UK citizen because
Yeah, so I think he
he
should have
came
been
over.
allowed in. I mean, like, it's not his fault, right? He
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
Hmm. All right. I think that was a good conversation that we've had. We are approaching the end of this podcast. I hope that all of you have enjoyed listening to this podcast. Sorry again for the delay. We will have more news this week coming up later on. And yeah, we'll be talking again about it on the next podcast in about a week from now. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope that you've had a great time listening. Please subscribe to the channel, and please continue, and please have a good list. Hope you've enjoyed it, basically. Um, Anyways, see you.